of the Academy, distinguished guests, students who are yet to arrive, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Ghana's premier learned society, Day 2 of this year's 3-day public forum. This event is being streamed live on the Academy's platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom. The Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences Public Forum, which usually takes place in June, started as a collaboration with the Frederick Ebert Foundation in 1993. On the theme, Making Democracy Work in the Fourth Republic. 20 years thereafter, in 2013, the Public Forum became exclusively a Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences event. Over the years, the Public Forum has dealt with themes such as accountability in governance, genetically modified organisms, waste management, migration and development, sustainable development goals and national development, and African continental free trade area, challenges and prospects. This year's theme is the impact of modern technology and artificial intelligence on education delivery. That the topic is an important one goes without saying in view of the global debates currently going on about the potential risks and challenges of rapid technological developments and their implications for education. I have the experts invited to speak on the various sub-themes who will be introduced to you shortly, will do justice to their topics and make your time here with us worthwhile. As I indicated yesterday, this year we are delighted to have received support from the Bank of Ghana to organize this all-important event. We are thankful for their support. I now have the honor of introducing to you the chairman for this evening. He is Professor Joseph Achu Ayi, Vice President of the Arts Section of the Academy and a professor in the Department of Political Science, University of Ghana. Elected a Fellow of the Academy in 2005, Professor Ayi served as Assistant Honorary Secretary from 2014 to 2016 and as Honorary Treasurer from 2016 to 2017. He was the occupant of the UNESCO United Nations University Leadership Academy Chair in Leadership Studies at the University of Jordan in 2001, and the Emeka Anyaoku Visiting Chair of Commonwealth Studies at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies, University of London in 2013. Professor Ayi was also the rector of Mount Crest University College from 2013 to 2014, Deputy Vice Chancellor of University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, 2010 to 2012, Dean of the Faculty of Social Studies at the University of Ghana from 2002 to 2009, and head of the Department of Political Science, University of Ghana from 1995 to 2000. He served as a member of a team of experts that drafted Ghana's National Decentralization Policy Framework and Action Plan in 2015 to 2019, and the National Decentralization Policy and Strategy 2020 to 2024. He has over 200 publications in several areas of political science, public policy, and administration. His current research interests include think tanks, higher education management, public sector reform in Africa, political institutions, and public sector management in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Professor Ayi, our chairman for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Honoris Secretary, President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, Vice President, Sciences Section, past presidents, vice presidents, fellows of the Academy, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today is day 2 of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences public forum on the theme, the impact of modern technology and artificial intelligence on education delivery. Yesterday we had 2 interesting speakers, lectures. One was on artificial intelligence, where are we? And then, of course, the second one was on artificial intelligence and education. These lectures yesterday generated a lot of discussion based on the questions in person and then online. Now, this evening we have the theme, the ethics and regulation of artificial intelligence in education. We have 2 speakers, and it is my pleasure to introduce all the 2 together, and then when it comes to their turn, they will just come and speak, and I'll come back during question time. Our first speaker this evening is Professor Adebayo Felix Adekoya. He will be speaking on the topic, ethical considerations of artificial intelligence in education, equity, privacy, data protection, and human dignity. Now, Professor Dr. Adebayo Felix Adekoya is a chartered information technology professional, CITP, certified management consultant, CMC, fellow of the Nigerian Computer Society, and the immediate past acting pro vice chancellor, University of Energy and Natural Resources, UENR, Sunyani. He is an associate professor of computer science and an expert in artificial intelligence and and Science and Software Engineering in the Department of Computer Science and Informatics. He has strong background in teaching, research, and extension services in information technology and higher education administration. Professor Adekoya obtained BSc, MSc, and PhD in computer science and an MBA in accounting and finance and postgraduate diploma in education, and has put in 28 years as lecturer, researcher, and administrator in several tertiary institutions. He teaches courses including artificial intelligence, computational intelligence, and philosophy of science at the postgraduate level. In 2022, he participated in the short course organized by the African Center for Technology Studies on Artificial Intelligence and Ethics, and in the seminar series on pedagogies, teaching practices, and emerging digital techniques in higher learning systems. He is the program lead for Partnership and Enhanced Extended Learning with Africa project at the UENR. He is an alumni of DAD Dialogue on Innovative Higher Education Strategy, International Dean's Course, and a member of several professional societies, and he is currently serving as the chairman, Education and Research Committee of the Internet Society of Ghana. So he is the first speaker. I'll move on to the second speaker, and he is Dr. Richard Nkrumah. He is a lecturer at Accra Technical University. He holds PhD in Applied Statistics from UDS, MSc in Statistics from KNUST, MSc in Cybersecurity and Digital Forensic from KNUST, BSc in Statistics from KNUST, and HND in Statistics from Accra Technical University. Dr. Nkrumah is a chartered economist from the Association of Certified Chartered Economists. He has 8 years banking experience in banking operations and data systems prior to lecturing. Dr. Nkrumah is the founder of the Association of Certified Chartered Data Scientists. He is also the founder of the Data Scientists Association of Ghana. Dr. Nkrumah's research interests are in data science, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, machine learning, and data analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your speakers. And it is now my pleasure to call on Professor Adekoya to give his lecture.
Thank you, Professor Shea. Because yesterday, one of the presentation mentioned generative AI, I would like to generate my protocols from the established protocols. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Academy for giving me the honor and privilege to be here this evening and to address this august gathering. Yesterday was stimulating. I wasn't here, but I joined online, and like the chairman said, the discussion generated a lot of issues that we need to continue to discuss furthermore. So I want us to look at my presentation. I would like to present a preamble and then do a short overview of applications of artificial intelligence in education, and thereafter talk about ethical considerations, the principles of artificial intelligence ethics, and the ethical frameworks in AI, and talk about equity of AI in education, talk about privacy and data protection, and also talk about the safeguarding human dignity, and look at few of the things that are happening across the world and come back home to Ghana. Please journey along with me in the next 20 or so minutes. If you look at this slide, on the right corner, the top one there, we could see a man holding a gun. I don't know what you will see that is the intention of the man that is holding a gun. I don't know whether you will agree that a gun was made for good purpose or gun was made for bad purposes. Whether you agree with whether the man who is holding the gun is holding it for good purposes or is holding it for good purposes. If you look at the bottom right corner, there is a palm there. Something looks like an insect in the palm of the one that we are seeing. That is not an insect. That is a unmanned aerial vehicle that is popularly called drone. Well, in Ghana, we know that government has demonstrated the importance and the multipurpose value of drone, using it to supply blood. I also know that if it were to be David in the Bible's time, permit me, instead of walking on top of his palace rooftop, he could have used drone to survey the kingdom. If you look at the two belts on this bottom left, one is telling his fellow that what is the opposite of undesirable. And the fellow is answering with a lot of adjectives in telling the other fellow the opposite of undesirable. What is the import of this? You see, one bad news is greater than many good news. The journalists always tell us that selling good news to them is not commercially viable. But bad news, they say, travel far. Yesterday, we all at least spent greater part of the discussion looking at the negative sides of AI. And my job here this evening is to tell us that we shouldn't draw too much on the negative sides of AI. Just as the gun was created for good purposes, some people have converted it to bad purposes. When you have a tool in your hand, the purpose of that tool will depend on the purpose for which you are using it for. So I want to start with this preamble, and I believe that I've passed a message across to us. Now, when we talk about good and bad, desirable and undesirable, evil and maybe good, right or wrong, we are talking about ethics, about what is right, what is wrong. So, on this slide, just to introduce us to the fact that when we talk about ethical considerations of AI in education, we are talking about choosing rightly, talking about sane usage, safe usage or safer environment, and so on and so forth. And let me just talk about this responsibility. If you are holding a tool, whatever action that you take, you must be alive to take the responsibility. And that is one of the things ethics addresses. I'm not going to dwell too much here. The point has been made yesterday that when we talk about AI, we are only talking about the ability of a machine to do what a human being could do ordinarily. When I came here this evening, the driver didn't know this place. Likewise myself, I know this place, but I wasn't too sure. So we had to rely on Google Map, and it led us here correctly. So that's an example of artificial intelligence. AI has been applied in many domains, just as I mentioned, in traffic management, in banking. Our ATM is an example of artificial intelligence machine, and so many other examples. If you go to the clinic today, there are a lot of medical equipment that are doing diagnosis. They are built on AI technologies. AI, like we heard yesterday, has also been deployed in education. So I will just run through some few applications. I'm not going to waste time on them because my colleagues did justice to them yesterday. The first one is personalized learning system. This personalized learning system is a system that has been designed to address the needs of a particular individual. We may be offering the same course, let's say BSc Computer Science. Our needs might not be the same. So when we enroll, the system will personalize the way we learn and the way we achieve our outcomes for us. Intelligent tutoring system. This one is just what we started with in many years back, we call computer-assisted instruction. So this is a way of allowing the system to teach us, take us through the learning process. Along the line, you can ask questions for topics or points that are not clear, and the system will give you explanation. For those of us teaching large classes, you agree with me that it's very cumbersome to conduct mid-sems or end-of-sems exams, because the university or the schools will give you the same period they give to people with smaller classes. And then you have to meet up. And that might not be the only course you are taking. So when you talk about some form of assistance, then automatic grading system becomes a very useful tool. and it is not new. In those days, in the days of OCR, MCR, until we moved to computer-based testing, and we also have what we call online examination systems. This one is recent, educational data mining. Every moment of our life, we gather data, or let me say we generate and gather data. As we sit here, we have generated huge amount of data. If we have IoT sensors to take some data, it will amaze you that we already have huge volumes of data. And therefore, I would like to say that in our education system, every seconds, there are a lot of data that is being generated, and this data, some of them are not captured. Those that are captured, they are lying down there. We are supposed to generate knowledge and intelligence from this data. So educational data mining, that is what it's doing, that we don't want this data that we have collected to just be wasting there. Let's make use of them. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a senior high school or a department in a university. You admit students. Do you care about their performance at the end of their period in your school or in your department? With educational data mining, you can collect their data, maybe through formative assessment. You are able to use it to counsel, to guide these people so that their summative assessment, they can achieve better results. Assistive technology. This is another reason why I wanted to draw our attention to the fact that when we talk about AI in education, we should not draw too much attention on the negatives. We know that our needs, our characteristics, our makeups as learners and as teachers are not the same. Some people, they have speaking or speech disability, some hearing disability, some visual disability, some cognitive disability. Some people, it is pocket disabilities. There are a lot of people that go to school with empty stomach, and you expect them to pay attention and learn well along with those who came to school with their stomach full and pocket full. So a lot of disparities, which we mentioned some. There are technologies that have been designed to assist individuals to ensure that they achieve the outcomes of their education. Then the last point I want to make is the ambient technology. Like I said, a lot of data is being gathered every moment. In the schools, we can have CCTV camera all around. Do we just mount them? Do we analyze the data we gather so that we'll be able to predict a likely security breach? Do you have IoT sensors? Are we able to look around the school's environment and be able to say something regarding the environment? Access control system. When you have access control in a classroom, the teacher or the lecturer doesn't need to be shouting, "Don't come late to school," or "Don't come late to class." You have set it. 15 minutes after lecture, nobody should come in. The lecturer or teacher will not mind him. He will just mind his business. Once it is 15 minutes, you come there, the door will not open. Once you are not registered for that class, you come there, the door will not open. Okay? So these are some of the examples of AI technologies that are being used in education. There are a lot, but let's just limit ourselves to this place because of time. So I talk about the ethical consideration, and from my preamble, I think I can skip this, but just to say that it is important for us to pay attention to ethics. Now, the principles of AI ethics, they talk about transparency and accountability. When we design AI system, in the design, in the development, in the usage, we must exhibit transparency and accountability. What do we mean? There should be some sort of ways of explaining things, opening things, not hiding them in a corner or in a dark box, okay? People want to know. There should be explanation that will lead to understanding. Then we should be talking about privacy and data protection. When a pupil is registered in a school, there are certain aspects of the information gathered from him or her that are confidential to the person. For example, when somebody comes to the university with some personal problem or the school, you as the headmaster or the head of the department, you have that data to use it to better manage the student and not share it with third party. So that is talking about privacy, we'll talk about it. Then data protection is the unauthorized usage of data. Okay, empowering human lives, protecting human dignity, that is another principle of AI ethics. Again, one important principle that I will not skip is the principle of fairness and bias mitigation. We will explain as we go along. The ethical framework is saying that, yes, we have these principles, yes, we have these AI tools, there should be a systematic way of designing, developing, deploying, and using them. So some bodies have sat down to develop ethical frameworks. There are different frameworks that are rolling out there, but I just selected this particular one, okay, which is say that the framework is built on the principles. It's built on the principles and then the reality in that system. And then the integration with the educational outcomes and the educational system. Again, there should be regular review, regular assessment. We should not just take it for granted that this AI tool is good and then we have implemented it, we are going to leave it in perpetuity. The next point I want to mention is that yesterday, one of my colleagues raised the issue of access, raised the issue of equity. Like I started with, every person sitting down here, we are unique in some sense. We are not the same. Our needs are different. So how do we ensure that every pupils in a class achieve quality education? Because that is the overall aim of the educational policy. You see on this side, we are saying that we have education disparity. As a result of, this man is saying, yes, I am a slow learner. This man is saying, yes, I am a quick learner. I don't know whether you have seen some kind of conflict between the slow learners and the quick learners. Most of us who are teachers, we do experience this every time. Okay? Some will think that you are slow, your teaching methodology is too slow because they are fast learner. But you can't say because some section of the class are fast learner, then you flow with them. And you cannot say because some section of the class they are slow learners, you flow with them. You have to find a way of balancing everything. Again, like I said, some people come to schools with their stomach empty, pocket empty. While some people, they come to school with their stomach filled and pocket filled. Some trek several kilometers before they reach their schools, while some, their parents drop them. Some enter commercial vehicles. Okay? So there is social inequalities, which on its own has created some gaps. So our interest is this. There are gaps already on ground. The application of AI should not further extend these disparities or inequalities or gaps that are already on ground. That is what equity in AI of AI in education is saying. So this is another scenario. I'm not going to spend much time because we've already laid the ground. If you look at this particular picture, you will see that several people are raising up their hands. I don't know many, those of us who are teachers, some people will have accused you at one point or the other that say, oh man, I raised my hand and you never called me. And it happens that some people deliberately do that, some people unintentionally do that. But this is a situation where in education we teach that we have to avoid. For example, you are teaching, you are not supposed to concentrate on the faces of a particular set of people. Your eyes is supposed to rove above and every members of the class. So when you apply AI, maybe you want to do practicals, everybody needs opportunity to have a feel of what you are doing. So everybody must participate. So if we don't address these challenges, then we'll further exacerbate them. And then the consequences will be that we either make the right decision or we make wrong decision. How do we avoid fairness, bias? Okay, and we ensure fairness. The first thing is that we should work towards inclusive education. I love the way diversity is being defined now. Diversity is no longer about gender. It's no longer about visual or hearing impairment. If you can hardly hear, you are actually impaired. So diversity even includes people with some other kind of a medical condition. So for this point, we are saying that to remove or reduce biasness and ensure fairness, we must think about inclusive education or inclusivity principle. Data privacy. We collect data for certain purposes. And one important thing is that there is a law, even in Ghana, about data protection. And whether we are aware about this law or not, it binds on us. So as users of AI in education, we must take time to look through that law and comply with the tenets of the law. So one of the concerns there is that data that we collect, they are sensitive in nature. And because of that, the principles of confidentiality must hold. Privacy concerns arises when there is insufficient protection for the data. It is important to establish clear guidelines if we must ensure data privacy, clear guidelines and robust security measure. When we talk about security, it's not about employing a physical person to secure the data. Data security is talking about the fact that we need to secure our data in the most efficient means. If there is a data breach, the integrity of the data will be affected. And once the integrity of the data is affected, reliability problems comes in. Nobody trusts your organization again. For example, I know that the general system is that after an examination has been conducted, the teachers have done their grading. There are supposed to be administrative meetings to look at the results before the students are informed. So I have the results. Is it ethical for me to inform student A that you scored X grade in this A subject? Once the administrative procedure has not sanctioned such, okay? Or a student has confided in me, is it ethical for me to divulge the information to a co-teacher? Or I am the IT manager and somebody approached me for me to allow him or her access into the system. Is it ethical? So that is talking about data sharing. Then, one of the challenges in AI in education has to do with consent. Whenever we are collecting data, it is important that we seek and obtain consent from the person we are collecting data from. Maybe somebody has come to enroll. When we give the form, we need to assure the person on the application form or whatever form that the data is supplying will be used for the purpose for which the data is being collected. And we explain what data, what that data is going to be used for. So if you don't comply with the consent, informing your respondent about their seeking their consent, it may result into legal consequences. I remember some few years ago, there was a case that was on the news about some pupils in Accra here that some people collected their blood samples. So I didn't know how the case ended, and I didn't know whether the people who collected the blood sample sought their consent or the consent of their parents or guidance if those people were less than 18 years. And whether they actually obtained ethical clearance for that research. These are necessary guidelines that we need to point our attention to. Then we need to quickly put in strong data protection policies, robust data encryption. It is not only to store your data, you need to store it in a way that even if somebody accidentally lands himself, the data lands in the hands of somebody accidentally, he may not understand it. So we need to encrypt the data. Okay. Please, let me just talk about the vendor assessment and contract. We must conduct assessment of our vendors, and the contract management must be done in a way that do not compromise the principles of ethics. Okay. Every I's that needed to be dotted should be dotted, and every T that needed to be crossed should be crossed. In terms of the privacy policies regarding because the vendors, you have to share some data among yourself when you are dealing with them. So they need to understand that the data that you are sharing with them falls under the Data Privacy Act. So the data protection and data privacy, they are very similar, but the difference there is that the privacy, we are talking about the confidentiality especially, and the protection is protecting the data from falling into the wrong hands. And therefore, the first thing we need to say here is about strong data governance. When we are going to manage our data, we need to set up a data governance framework, which will ensure that our data is properly stored, secured, and safe. Of course, we should not just admit that or accept that we have stored the data in a secure way, our governance framework is right. We need to regularly or periodically review or audit our data protection schemes, because every day things are happening. Those who are monitoring you, they know they are monitoring you. You may not know that they are monitoring you. And don't forget that breaches could be caused from internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders. And that leads to the fact that our staff must be trained and retrained continuously, because we live in a dynamic world. In terms of the unethical practices, every day new unethical practices surfaces, and therefore we must be ahead of them. I was having some pre-talk discussion with the chair, and I was saying that what we are discussing here, yesterday we discussed about ChatGPT, and people expressed their concern. But in my mind, I said, what the problem that we are discussing is far more than what we are discussing. Because we are discussing students, discouraging them from using ChatGPT. But now there are tools that can detect whether an essay was written with the use of ChatGPT. Okay, beyond that one, there is another tool that can humanize everything that ChatGPT has written. So if there is no tool that can, for now, that can tell you that precisely, after you have humanized it, precisely that it was generated by ChatGPT. And the funniest thing is that our students know all these things. They are far ahead of us. We must be humble to accept, even call them once in a while. If you don't want to use the direct means, use the wisdom God has given you as an elder to obtain information and knowledge from them. After all, as parents, we do this. We ask our students, come and do this for me. Come and do this. Am I right? So we must train ourselves. And luckily for us, training does not necessarily mean that the organization is spending money. There are a lot of classes on YouTube and even open classes on the internet on any subject whatsoever. Even the ChatGPT, you can ask the ChatGPT the question, how do I do this? If you cannot do it, it will tell you. All right. This one, I will not dwell too long, is the fact that education is a business. If education is a business, we must always be thinking about the business continuity of education in case of disaster or breaches. How do we respond? The September 11 came to mind. The next day, all the businesses in the complex of the World Trade Centers, the next day they open shop somewhere, because they are able to manage their data to the extent that irrespective of what happened, they are able to continue business. So I think one of the speakers yesterday said that we must design and deploy AI in a way that it will not harm anyone. And that is very important. That is very important. So our use of AI in education must safeguard human dignity. It is always essential to strike a balance between the use of technology and human interactions. When we went online or virtual during COVID, a lot of people missed classes because when you do virtual classes, you interact, but the interaction there is different from the interaction that you have when you are doing face-to-face. So that social interactions will be missing in virtual classes. So we must strike a balance because beyond the curriculum we have that we are passing around, there are other aspects of education that people pick up when they are in school. Over-reliance on AI. Yesterday, this was raised here, that if there is too much over-reliance on AI, it gets to a extent that somebody will not possess the right knowledge that he or she is supposed to possess. And then it takes the ability to be analytical from that person. So what should we do? We must promote human-AI collaboration. Okay. So we must see AI as a tool to support, to complement, not to take human away. Yes, we want AI, but we still create room for the teachers to do their work. And that is one of the principles of blended learning. Everybody has emotional need. Everybody has social need. Maslow tells us this. So we must ensure that the use of AI do not deprive us of our emotional needs, do not deprive us of our social well-being. What do I mean? I'm not saying we should be too emotional, but even nowadays we are talking about emotional intelligence. So therefore we should ensure that AI systems and digital tools consider students' emotional and social well-being. Somebody who is saying that I have not been given equal opportunity to practice with the, let's say maybe you are using some robotic tools to teach the student, and he's saying that I don't have opportunity to practice. You need to consider such a person's feeling and then create allowance for he or she to also lay his hand or her hand on the tool. Then we have talked about transparency and explainability. It comes also under human dignity. I remember that any time I am able, when I was a student, I'm able to solve a problem. I'm able to walk through some laboratory experiment. The kind of feelings that I have is special. When I'm able to arrive at a solution, I've always beat my chest. So it gives me some sense of pride as a human being. So as human beings, we should ensure that our students are able to also do things on their own, even with the support of AI, not depending entirely on AI. Ethical guidelines must be set. I will talk about that later. Then continuous professional development, I have talked about it, but I will still talk about it later. So let me just move quickly. Then what is happening around the world? The first thing is, around the world, people are developing policies and guidelines for the use of AI in education. And some of these policies have been transformed into legislations. Then, so another thing is that people are going to research and partnerships. They are not relying only on what they know or what they can do, but they are rather seeking partnership with other people to strengthen their educational systems. Capacity and professional development. A teacher who was trained before ChatGPT, we need to know about ChatGPT. A teacher who was trained before wearable devices. Wearable devices are good. They are supposed to help somebody to monitor the BP, the precipitation, the pulse, and so on and so forth. But that same wearable devices, some people are using it for cheating in examination. Should we say that no student should wear the wearable devices, knowing fully well that some students need it? So, therefore, we need capacity building in every area of management to know how to manage the use of AI in education. Like, what I'm saying is that we have ChatGPT. Does it mean that we don't need it entirely? Or we need to set guidelines on what to use it for and how to use it, and guidelines to measure over-reliance on ChatGPT. Data privacy and security. If you go on Amazon, Amazon architectural setup is done in such a way that Microsoft is also doing cloud computing with their Azure system. So Google is also doing cloud computing. So I'm not doing marketing for any company. But cloud computing is done in such a way that you spread the data storage across different regions. So that if there is problem with one region, you can continue work with getting data from another region. Then data governance and frameworks. These are some of the discussions that other countries are discussing and setting up guidelines for them. I've talked about global collaborative initiatives. I'm gradually winding up. Let's just look at this map. This is the map of the world. We are talking about the countries that have set up national strategies and initiatives when it comes to artificial intelligence. These areas marked green, they have all developed their national strategies. This area marked orange are in the process of developing their national strategies. Lucky for us, we are there. At least there are some other countries that we don't even know whether they are there or not. But we are working on our own national strategies. And I think we need to give commendation to some people. Well, for the past few years, Ghana has been part of the ethical policy frameworks for artificial intelligence in the Global South. This is being pioneered and led by UN Global Pulse and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. So Ghana is working with the UN Global Pulse to develop the national strategies. So I think only that I wanted to lay my hands on it. I don't have it yet, but they are actually working on the national strategy. There have been some private sector initiatives, such as I will see some alliance between a private company and the IIPGH, the Institute of Information Technology Professional, Ghana. Then we are lucky in Africa, and this is where government should actually task Google. Google is the home. Ghana is the home of Google's artificial intelligence in Africa. So our schools, our resources should be able to tap a lot of the opportunities, advantage from being the landlord to Google artificial intelligence. And it's not just a lab, there is a lab. So we should be able to benefit from the lab being on our soil. Some weeks back, the Deputy Minister in charge of education told a gathering that government is committed to invest in STEM, robotics, artificial intelligence, and mechatronics, and Internet of Things. And I think for the past 2 or 3 years, there have been some competitions among students on in these areas. So, and the ministry has developed keen interest in following it up. So I've mentioned this collaboration between the private and the professional institutes earlier on. So, going from here, what is our responsibilities? What should we do? The first thing is for us to continue to discuss how are we going to train our teachers so that they can meet the current wave of applications of artificial intelligence in education. How do we train our security personnel in the schools? How do we train the administrators? How do we train even parents? Because we give assignments or homework to the pupils or students. Some, they will have to seek assistance of their parents. How do we ensure that we train stakeholders? Then we need to invest in AI infrastructure. It shouldn't just be talking about it. We should get government commitment in terms of developing, investing in AI infrastructure, not only in schools, but in our towns and cities. I think for the past 2 years, government has invested in setting up cameras on the major highways. That is very commendable, but we should go beyond that. That means that since our educational policies was set before the invasion of AI, then it makes that educational policy inadequate. There should be reform in our educational policy and system to accommodate the application of AI. Of course, our universities and tertiary institutions will have to partner with government and the private industries on research and development. It is very key. So one of the speakers mentioned this yesterday, that yes, we are talking about it, yes, we are using it, but we have not developed our own. Everything we are using, they are developed from somewhere. Those of us who are using ChatGPT, whatever that you are using, you need to register. Your data is being collected. What are they using your data for? You don't know. For the past few months, it has been an odd debate between US and China on TikTok. Now US has banned TikTok. Okay? I'm not for, I'm not against. But what I'm for is that let us develop our own. And then, like I said, we need some legislation to guide us. My friend and colleague will be talking about regulation, so I won't talk much about legislation. But I want to talk about national identity. And that is very important for us. When we talk about AI in education, what are we talking about? Are we coming up with something? We need some agenda. we need some agenda so that at the end of the day, in some few years, we could say that this one is Ghana made. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. Yes, I'll be walking you through regulating the use of AI in education, the role of government, stakeholders, and then the ecosystem. So I'll go through this outline. Dangers of AI, global development of AI regulation, up to the references. So, introduction. The previous speakers have spoken well on the definition, what is AI. So I think that one has been done with. Artificial intelligence is simulation of human intelligence processes for machines. Now what we know is that systems have been developed and they act just like human beings would do, as it's been explained. AI plays role in education, such as teaching, learning, and real-life experiences. I wouldn't bother you on that. Let's do some recaps on the dangers of AI in education. We have accelerated hacking. You realize that you see a student teaching, cheating in the examination room with the device, as our previous speaker said. We also have a situation where the student will just merge images and then he can use it to impersonate another person. All these are happening in our schools. We also have AI class distractions. During the COVID time, you have a Zoom meeting, Google Meet, and so on. So there are apps. Previously, you could, there were hardcore programmings or codings before you be able to accomplish a task. But now there are AI systems that by virtue of just a click, you can just launch an attack. So as we have an online program, someone will just use AI system to just interact the whole process. It's happening. And then we also have falsifying academic grades. It will be very difficult for you to get into a system and then just change your grades. Maybe you've had D, C, and then you just modify into A's and then B's. But there are AI systems that can easily do that through cyber techniques. So all these are happening in our schools. And then altering school payment systems. So you see the student, it's time for exams, and then he knows that he's not paid the school fees. But he has a way to use a system and modify his account details in the system. So if he's paying 5,000 and he's already paid 2,000, so he will modify it to exactly 5,000, just like as if he has paid. So that is where we are. So I'm just saying this to a point that where there is the need for the regulation, where there is a need for regulation to put some sanctions along the line. And then also low creativity and imagination. I think the previous speaker yesterday talked about it, where we have a system that students will not want to think anymore, but want to use those systems. But the truth of the matter is that every season or dynamics in nature and how things should go. So it's like whatever happens, just follow its suit. It has its own advantages and then disadvantages. We need not prevent people from using such systems. The major problems associated with non-regulations of AI application. One, we have the data breaches, and then we also have AI systems scopes are not defined. So, for example, someone wants to develop a system, but because there are no regulations, he will just do it anyhow. He will not encrypt it. There will not be any security adherence. So, in that case, he will not have the system being well-defined. And also, AI used for hacking purposes, like what I spoke about. The big question now is, who regulates AI? That's the big question. Who regulates AI? So let's look at some global developments in AI regulation. The European Union, we can have the France, Spain, and then other countries. What have they done so far in terms of regulation? The first draft of the EU was presented or published in December 6, 2022. That was just last year. So if it stands to mean that Ghana, we are doing something, then it means that we are actually doing very well. Because in the European Union, which comprises many countries, they presented the first legal document December 6, 2022. And then in the document, the main consideration elements were, one, the risk classification, the data subjects, and then the governance system. So risk classification, for example, if you come to the school, we have the students, the teacher, and then the systems. How do we put them in risk? So assuming all the systems shut down, how will it affect the students' results? And then the teacher has uploaded all his teaching materials online, and an AI system is used to interrupt. How will it affect his teaching activities? So all these have been well classified. And then we look at Brazil. Brazil also has the first draft also submitted and published in December 1st, 2022. That one also last year. And then the component of the draft was just like that of the European Union. So you can see that they are all taking the same pattern. But the question here is that, can Ghana also follow the same way, even in our developmental, at our developmental stage? So it also has the risk classification, but here, the Brazil looks specifically at the health, safety, and then vulnerability. If you're able to design a system which will not affect the person's health, safety, then that's fine, you can deploy. Then it looks at the data subjects, where here information rights are being well affirmed. And then we look at the governance system. And then China also the same. China established the first generation artificial intelligence in 2017. But interestingly, they have a legal document or an act which controls strongly all AI development. So I can see that they are doing very well. And then they are more into the algorithm. Algorithm here means that the step-by-step processes of which an AI tool is being developed. So as far as you are able to demonstrate that, okay, you started from A, B, and C, and it will not affect human health, human business income, or other activities of life, the ecosystem, then you can deploy. And then another one, it's the provision of management synthesis, where here we are looking at, they look at the content and then the aim. So we can see that most of the countries, they have their own objectives as to regulating AI systems. We are looking at it from that point, and then we'll see how Ghana can adopt some of the elements within the ecosystem where others have used, or where other countries have used. And in Japan, they also have 7 main elements that they look at. Japan came out with integrated innovative strategy promotion strategy in March 2019, which is not also so too far. So they looked at the human centricity. So how will it affect human in terms of maybe the talking, hearing, touch, or any other thing? And then we also have the educational literacy. Will it affect the educational status? For example, we are looking at the ChatGPT or structures like that. Will it affect the educational system? So they are more particular about it. Data protection, ensuring safety, and then others like that. And then we also have Canada. Canada, just like China, they also have a legal instrument, document, that regulates AI activities. So, and their focus is more of whether the AI system is destructive in nature or it has individual interests. They look at the individual's interests and requirements. Let's look at India also. They currently don't have a specified regulatory framework for AI system. However, they have some papers or documents that give guidance to us to how AI systems should be developed. So they look at the supervisory authority, principles of responsible AI, provide guidance and standards, and then the coordination. So with the supervisory authority, they look at whether if you develop the AI and there is any development, for example, it causes a harm, can you be able to reverse it? Or will your code be in a way that you can modify or you can correct in a way? That's what they're referring to. And then we also have United States. For United States, they have laws, all right, but the laws are not directing to AI. However, because there are several laws, their segments are able to deal with issues that AI bring forth. So they use principles and procedures. So in their blueprint that was published in October 2022, they highlighted some areas. One, the development, deployment, risk assessment, and management of the risk. So we can see that as we are going through, risk is coming up more frequently within the scope and elements of the AI regulation. We have Switzerland. For Switzerland too, there is no law that governs the AI. Then we come to our own Africa. Interestingly, in Africa, for now, most of the countries, there are no laws. However, there are principles and strategies that guide how AI should function. So we have Ethiopia, Ghana, and then up to Uganda. They have strategies that are in place or that are developing, hoping that it will be a legal instrument to regulate AI. Now, let's look at some insights from global stands. You can see that some countries manage AI with just principles, so without strict rules. We have Japan, United States of America. And then we also have countries that manage AI with specific laws, like we saw China and that of Canada. Countries that depend on existing laws, we saw Switzerland, and then the countries that have only strategies without principles or specific laws. And you can see the majority of them were in Africa. So that's African countries. So the question here is that where are we right now? Now, before we decide or we recommend to Ghana or other countries as to the kind of regulatory instrument to use, we would like to look at the good side and the drawback, or the advantages and disadvantages. Then we can do a proper recommendation for adoption. So we saw that we had countries that were using just principles. So with that, the good side is that we have flexibility in applications usage. So the applications are just flexible. You can just use it anyhow. Why? Because you're just using principles. If you falter, it means no law will deal with you. And then we also have freedom of developing all kinds of applications. You can develop the applications whichever way you want. So just like in Ghana, as far as there are no strict laws, we only have the Data Protection Act. But if the content does not take consideration of AI, if there are specific issues about AI, the act cannot address it. It cannot be defined in court. So we have the drawback for this one as the principles are not law-abiding. They are not binding. Freedom of development of harmful AI applications. And then we also have no regulation, that is stage of developing regulating instrument. This is the stage that we find Ghana and most African countries. So what are the advantages and disadvantages, or the good side and then the drawback? We have the low cost of involvement. The government doesn't pay because there is no AI major project on specific legal instruments as at now. Even though there may be other projects, but for the legal instruments, there hadn't been any pure research in that. Then we all have the drawback, high levels of crime on data because there is no regulation. System insecurity, weakening of government system, high cost of developing new instruments, and then freedom of developing AI applications. You can develop any AI application. If there are rules or there are acts, if you are developing it, you consider the element of the act and then develop it appropriately so that it will fit the ecosystem. Now, using indirect laws, we saw that there were countries that use indirect laws. It means that they had the laws or the regulations already, they had some, so they depend on the existing laws in order to govern the AI, the current state of AI. So in that case, the good side, no cost on developing new laws. Laws are not specific. Cases can be adequately defined in court. So that is where, that's how it is. And then we have using direct laws. Here, we assume that the legislature has done justice. We have the instrument, the act, dealing with AI. So if it happens so, we have the good side. Laws are specific on AI. We have very specific laws on AI, defining terms by terms and algorithms. So we'll prevent data breaches, improvement on application of security and assurance, motivation to investors, getting AI activities under control. And then we also have the drawback, strict laws will prevent innovation. Usually, if there are strict laws, even though it has some positive, a lot of positive feedback, there are some developers who will be reluctant in developing, especially the starters, because they'll feel like, if I'm developing this application and I'm using maybe Python, I'm using maybe any application, R or any software, it can interact another system and be very destructive. So I wouldn't even try. So it could also prevent people from being innovative. Now, the way forward for Ghana in regulating AI, what's the way forward? You saw the good side and then the bad side. But we can see that if we are able to draw a document or come up with a legal instrument that will regulate AI, will be at a very good point. Now, what has Ghana done so far? January 2022, that was last year, when during the Data Protection Week, we had the Deputy Minister talking about the fact that Ghana is in the position of developing a legal instrument to regulate AI. And the purpose is that it will guide the use of artificial intelligence for stakeholders and also promotes technology in Ghana. So it means that Ghana has made a move. But the question here is that, what are the considerations, or what are the ecosystem? We have the government here in play as a player. We have the AI developers. We have the educational institution. We have users' impact on society and environment. So if there are developments in AI legislature, then it means that this should be considered. We should look at the developer. We should consult the developers and get their views. Which programming language do they use? How vulnerable are they? What are some of the security features that can be added or can be taken out? And what are the experiences in other countries? We need to consider all these things. So we can see that the government affects the developers, also affects the educational institutions, and then the educational institutions or the training institutions also affect the users. And eventually, you see the users or the students impacting our society. Leaking videos, or I'm learning from what they have training, and then impacting the environment, deploying AI systems on drone for maybe agricultural purpose, weather forecasts, and other areas of life. So you can see how they interact, though this should be considered. If we extract education out from the ecosystem, then we can see that here we are looking at the input, the process, and output. Whatever you put in, you should, if it is good, you should expect something good. So in our educational system, we look at the societal needs, we look at the knowledge, we look at the technology, and then the resources. And then if it comes to the process, the curriculum, how are they developed? Have they incorporated AI technologies or AI systems? Have they trained students to code or program from the scratch? Or we are only using AI systems that are existing? All this should be taken into consideration. And then we look at the outputs. Our students that use those AI systems, if they come out, would they be employable? Will any institution employ them? We have to look at all these things in the legislature or in the development, the legal development. Let's look at adaptations. Now we have looked at how the other countries are doing in terms of regulating AI or the moves in coming out with instruments for AI. Now we realize that these elements were predominant in the various countries that we looked at. Risk, classifications, algorithms, data, subject rights, and governance. Now let's look at the risk classification. We are trying to adopt the EU style because we realize that most countries use the European Union style because they have gone far ahead as far as the instrument is concerned or the act is concerned. So risk here has been, they have categorized them into 4. So we have the minimal, limited, high, and unacceptable risk. So minimal, that is a student in a class. Now the students try to use Python to write maybe AI programs. Okay, and then he makes mistakes, gets into systems and that. Because the student is training, those mistakes are just acceptable. That is the grassroots. Or somebody goes to the net and then he uses AI application. As far as it does not cause harm to another person, if it happens that maybe he's downloading and then the Android OS operating system is not accepting, then he will not be found as guilty because he's just downloading and then using. However, if it happens that the process of usage is causing a problem to another person or other systems, then it means that he will be found wanting, or the law will deal with him. Then the limited risk, we have impersonation. For example, you know the AI system, you can take one person's image, another person's image, get the algorithm, the eigenvalues for them, and merge them up to come out with a mean face. So you see that the person looks like me, it looks like somebody else. So you can use that to impersonate someone, or you can use that in a bad way or in a criminal way. It happens most of the time. And then we also have the chatbots, emotional recognition. Let's take, for example, we have maybe Ridge Hospital, and then we decide that, okay, we want to develop expert system, chatbots, so that the doctor's work will reduce or will be minimal. There will not be too much under pressure. So we develop a system that patients will go or clients will go online. It will ask them certain questions and then do some basic prescription, painkillers and other stuff. So assuming you are the developer, and then in the process of developing, you miss the codes, and instead of giving maybe analgesic, maybe any painkiller, then the chatbot recommends maybe amoxicillin or any other chemical or any other medicine for the person. So in that case, you fall under the limited risk. Why? Because it is your work. So though you be charged negligence of duty, okay, but it's a limited risk. And then we also have high risk, that is access to employment. For example, I want promotion at the workplace, and then I know the system, so I'm able to get any AI system to get into the system and change my records that I've published maybe 100 papers. I have served on several committees. I have done that. I change all in the HR system. And then I get a job. If I'm found out, then I'm at a very high risk person. So these are some of the categories that the law should look at, more specifically in AI, and not looking at indirect laws to battle AI or to take care of AI. So we also have the social discourse, and so on and so forth. So we have, then let's look at the AI algorithm ecosystem. Now, this is part of the regulatory element. We have data science, machine learning, AI, and then we have deep learning. The AI it's just one which has the deep learning. It also has the data science. Now, what happens here is that at the deep learning side, you are using algorithms, sort of neural networks. So let's take, for example, maybe I want to move outside here. So I'm looking at 0 and then 1. So if I want to go outside, it's 1. So immediately I go outside. Maybe I want to move outside and get to ATU. So I move outside, it's 1. If I get outside and I want to go to the left to join the road, then it also gives me another probability percentage. And it goes like that. So these mathematical algorithm or techniques are the ones that are being employed on the AI systems for us to see what we normally see them on our Google Map and then other stuff. There are a lot of things working behind the system. So the regulatory element is saying that for somebody to develop an AI system, then the person should be scrutinized. The person should present the algorithm step by step, section by section, project by project, and then it will be vetted by experts to see if there is no a section of the code which is vulnerable or which is dangerous to the ecosystem. So that is what the law should see. So the government at this point should get experts who will look at it. It's not like maybe people who are not expert in that, and then it creates problem for the ecosystem. So we now have the data subject rights. What are involved? We have 8 main elements. So the right to be informed, our previous speaker said it, if you are obtaining information from me, you need to tell me what you are going to use the information for. If I'm willing, and though if I'm not compelled by law, I can say I'll not give you. So that should be part of the regulation. The right of access. As we are here, the Data Protection Act allows us to to obtain public data. For example, from maybe Ghana Statistical Service. You can get data from there. It is your rights of access. You have access to it. But there are some private information that cannot be released to you. There are limits to that. We have the rights of rectification. If you give me data, if I tell you that I am so and so, or if you tell me that you are George, I have the right to go around and check if truly you are George. If you give me data, I should be able to rectify or verify. So the right of object to processing, the right to restrict processes, and then data portability, the right to data portability, how you carry data about. I have my data, and wherever I want to take it to, that is with me. If Ghana Statistical Service has a bank of data, if they decide that they will save it this way, or they will move it to their sector in maybe Kumasi or Tamale, that is okay. Data portability, transfer of data. But now we can see that in the olden days, data were in books. So if maybe Tamale needs data, we have to carry all the registers and back them in VIP and send them to them. But now there are lots of means to which we can transfer data across. So we have them in that order. So all these ones should be considered in the legislature or should be considered in the act in order to guide AI applications and activities. So let's look at some liabilities. Are we liable? Can they hold us responsible in any way? Now, we have the physical and then the social. The AI deployment, the design, deployment, and its algorithm, will it affect me physically? Will it cause any injury? You've been able to man a drone. Now, will it be able to, will it affect me negatively? You see drones roaming about on people's buildings, taking pictures that they are not even authorized to do so. You also see drones carrying dangerous weapons and then discharging them at certain places, especially at the mining site. Okay, they use dynamite, so they cannot go there. So they put them on drones, and then it will just blast in that order. So will it be dangerous to human beings? And then the social status. Will I develop an AI system that would ruin your reputation or your social status? Let's take, for example, maybe we have nude pictures somewhere, then we just modify it, and then we place your head on the nude. Okay, and we design it in a way that you will not even be able to notice the edges that we've placed on. We use algorithm. So we just copy the head matrix and then deposit it on the head matrix of the other one, and it will give us exact way. Okay, so when it happens like that, then the law should be able to check. There should also be people who are well trained, like cybersecurity, who are also trained in AI applications to be able to investigate a picture or an image that is correct and an image that is altered. We should be able to know all those things in the legislature. Because, for example, if you are saying that this is my image, I've gone to do 1 or 2, and then you are putting me in jail. What shows? Someone has done Photoshop. Somebody has used AI to do it. There should be experts to check that, to check the background data. Now, the governance system, we have the government should look at 3 stages: the first term, second, and then the third. The near term, you can look at the technical layer, where in this case, the development, the algorithms. One, the people who learn the algorithms, those who develop it, and the tools that are being used. We should look at it at the primary stage before moving on to maybe the ethical layer, as our previous speaker said, the ethical layer. We now have the tools, everything. How do we now keep it in ethical way? Or how do we demonstrate them or use them in a way that will not affect or create inequalities? And then we look at the social and legal layers in order to govern or to create the systems. Now, we look at the final one, that is the sanction, that's under the frameworks. The sanctions. We have individual, the solo sanction, and then the group sanction. If maybe Kojo uses the AI in a wrong way, okay, Kojo uses Ajua's laptop. So in that way, are you going to punish Kojo, or we are going to punish Kojo and Ajua, where Ajua is the one who has the AI application on his laptop? So all these things should be clearly defined and know where sanctions are placed. So we can look at it by fine, withdrawal of license or accreditation. So if you're an institution, we can withdraw your license. Let's say, for example, you have trained your students how to hack into system, and all of a sudden the whole university's information system, WhatsApp and other areas are all shut down because the students were practicing their cyber skills. And then it didn't happen just once, several times in other areas. There was an incident where a cyber, they were just testing like that, and it shut down one of the telcos, part of their system down. He just typed in the name of the, if it's MTN or Airtel, they type into the system, and all of a sudden, the part of the system just came down. And it happens like that. Most of the time with maybe institutional database. If it is not well secured, or the data systems are not well encrypted, the keys, passwords are not well encrypted, then you can see some of these breaches coming on. Previously, you could have hard time writing a program or a code to execute a particular task. But now AI will just look at it and do it for you in just seconds. We also have AI systems that even do self-coding or automating coding. It will identify the situation and code by itself. So you can just see in that order. Now let's look at the role of government, stakeholders, and ecosystem. Now we've been able to look at the dynamics, the structures from global, other countries up to Ghana. Now what are the roles? The government, the institutions, individuals, and then the AI developers. What are the rules? How would they also contribute in the legal framework? The role of government, the government should provide funds for AI impact research. That should be the first thing. To the best of my knowledge, I don't know though, but there should be serious AI system to look at issues like Ghana's preparedness on AI. How is Ghana prepared AI? If you go to other rural areas, are they prepared? Because if they have their accounts that are being hacked by AI, because you can have AI system that will just monitor your password. I can deploy AI system on your phone. I'll send you a link. Even the link, I'll embed it on a test that you won't even know. So by virtue of clicking on the test, it will download the AI app. Then the AI app will pick your screen, and it will just take a screenshot and send it to me without even your notice. Then I'll be able to know your password for your mobile money. These are systems that are there, real life. So, setting up committees for AI strategy and policy reviews. I'm sure that one is in place. Setting up authority to regulate AI in Ghana. There should be an authority that will give license and withdraw license, and also conduct periodic reviews and audits on AI. There should also be sanctioning of violators. All people or entities or groups or institutions that violate the law, they must be, there should be a section of the law that can sanction them. Now, the role of educational institutions. What is the role of educational institutions in AI regulation? Reviewing curriculum with industry experts to incorporate AI tools and applications. In every institution, the issue is that the student is moving from the classroom to industry, to practice. So if you don't liaise the student with the industry person, then it means that you are killing his aim or his goal. He cannot perform very well. Because in most cases, the classroom is more of the theory and less practicals. So, because the AI is more of a practical tool or practical application, the experts should be very much involved. And maybe for a lecture, you can, before the semester ends, you can invite an expert to give the last 2 lectures for that particular course, in every course, in that regard. And then training on the impact of AI application on teaching and learning. There should be periodic training, capacity building on the impact of AI. Emerging tools, those ones that are being developed, we should be able to introduce them to our people and tell them their features, what they are being used for, and how they can harm them or they can do them good. We also set up AI quality control units in institutions. So if you're able to do all these things, by the time the government is ready, you realize that all the institutions are also ready to implement the act. Otherwise, you will see a lot of people falling victims to the law, which will not be good. Because if the law is implemented, it is most likely that students will find themselves wanting, because most students are very enthusiastic and they want to be innovative, come out with applications and all that. And they end up entering into systems that they are not supposed to. And then also student project work should focus on machine learning, AI, and data science. You realize that, let's take for example, with the AI, I want to develop, I want to do a facial recognition. Now, if I have my X and Y axis, I can plot my face in the X and Y axis. Now, every point in my face has a location on the X and Y axis as a coordinate, X and Y coordinates. So I can have a lot of plenty points. If I plot all of them, I'll get my face. So now, how do I maybe truncate my image or remove my nose? So what I'll do is that I'll go to my data where I have those points there and remove everything there. That's how mathematically the algorithm works. So I remove all those data points. So if you plot my face, you will see that my nose is out. So if I go and I get another person's image and get his coordinates for his nose, I'll come and then paste his coordinates in my data set. So if I plot it, I'll get his nose on my head. That is how the algorithm works mathematically. So we don't normally see this because we don't train our students to code from scratch. They should be able to code from scratch. Because normally the student picks the image and deposit it in the application. Then it gives him the image, its measure, form, like maybe he's 20 years. He wants to see how he will be in 70 years. It gives him in that order. If we can train our students to code from scratch so that it gives them in that order. If you're able to teach them to code from scratch, in that case, if there is any fraudulent issue or crime within the coding system or the data points, they will be able to fish them out. But if you don't, then we will not be able to. Now, we also have the role of industries. So the industry should also consider the impact of AI on the ecosystem. You are deploying AI on unmanned vehicle, that is drone. How will it affect people? You are developing AI system. Have you considered the age of the people? There are AI systems that can enable a child watch pornographic stuff just like that, without any restriction. Has the developer considered that, the age of the child? We can develop an AI system that, by virtue of looking at the child looking at the phone, the AI will be able to predict that this is a child face and then prevent him from accessing any site. So maybe our students can take that one up as a project. So consider the level of exposure. To what extent are you exposing the people, the users? And then the access and privileges. How have you allowed, there are some applications that before a child gets into it, you should send a link to a parent, then the parent will authorize. But this one, most parents don't do that. Most Android phones have parental control stuff, but we don't look at that. They are all there, which will prevent the child from browsing sites and all that. Okay, and then we look at education institutions, support for education institutions. The industry players or the expert developers should coordinate, as our previous speaker, should coordinate with the education institutions to bring that expert ideas and a practical knowledge into the classroom. Okay. Now, the experts should also mount mentorship programs so that they will be able to train the students to be professional and ethical. For example, someone learning ethical hacking. Meanwhile, he doesn't know even the principles of ethics, as our previous speaker has said. He doesn't even know them. So what is the ethical hacking here? He'll go send you a link, break into your phone, send you a link, break into your laptop, and so on. So there should be that mentorship to train them how to be professional. There are some points that you have the power to do, but because of ethical reason, you just have to reserve your authority. And then we have the last one, the role of individuals. This time, not the government, not institutions, not industry players, but individuals. So, and almost all of us are individuals to some extent. So now, we have to be open to new AI technologies. The thing is coming. The thing has come. The thing is there. It will not go. So whether we like it or it's there, it has come to stay. So we have to open up and learn the features so that we'll be able to get the good or the benefits of their usage. We have to also pay attention to how AI applications operate. There are most applications, if you go to their sites, they will tell you what the applications are being used for. They will tell you what the applications are being used for. So you take time and then study the manuals or the procedures so that you don't falter on the law. And then be familiar with manuals and procedures. We talked about that. Be mindful of security features of AI applications. If you are installing an application or an AI system, it will prompt you your Android system or iOS will tell you to allow certain features. The contacts, your Google location, and then other features. So whilst you are taking yes, you have to just be mindful. There are some areas or features that you can restrict the application from having access to it. So you pay attention to it, and then life becomes very fine. And you also take responsibility of the AI systems you use. If you are using AI system, anytime you go into, you enter into a system, tell yourself that whatever happens, it is my own fault or it is my own good. Because what happens here is that anything you do online, your traces can be found. Cybersecurity experts can find your traces. Even if you are using the Banshee phone, okay, your traces can be found. The issue here is that you are using YAM phone. You have an Android. We can map out the distance between the Android, the smartphone, and the non-smartphone. We can map out the distance between them. So we can detect that, okay, for George, who is using number A or 024 number, most of the time, at any time that he's sleeping or the phone is idle or is not active, there is a distance of maybe 2 meters between those lines. We can use that to check any fraudulent activity someone, I not say us, someone is doing or using the Banshee phone to do. So anytime we use applications, whichever way they find themselves or we find them, we should be mindful and take responsibility of them, because there is a legal document or an act which is in development. And if it is well implemented, it will take care of all these weaknesses or potholes in the system. So in conclusion, I will say that AI has come to stay, and we have to embrace it. We have to join hands with the government and stakeholders and the general ecosystem in making it a world-developing one for our nation, Ghana, Africa, and even the nation and the global point as a whole. Thank you very much for your attention.
Can we clap for them? Okay, so we have a brief interaction. We will entertain three questions. You go straight to the point, and then you can ask your question. Your name first, and then the question or the comment.
Hello. My name is Thomas Onoma from University of Ghana, Guided School of Nuclear and Allied Sciences. From one of your slides, you mentioned that we should be open to more AI systems because they have come to stay. And then also, you mentioned that AI affects human creativity. So my question is this: in as much as we ought to use AI systems into our ecosystem, how do we make sure that it doesn't affect human creativity? Because with AI systems, something that previously you can use a day or two to get them done, with AI system, just a click of a button, you are good to go. So it reduces the level at which you have to be creative around it to solve a problem. So in as much as we want to integrate AI into our system as humans, how do we make it in such a way that it doesn't affect how creative you, the human being, will be? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I wouldn't know whether you are here at the beginning of today's program. You are here. Oh, I mean today, did you start with us? Or you joined us after we have started? Okay, because your question seems to be show that maybe you joined us after we started. If you look at the topics that we addressed today, there seems to be some convergence. And the main theme there, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, is that we are looking at the use of AI in education in a safe, saner, and responsible manner. If you follow all through the talk, at the point we said that the tool could be used for good purpose and it could be used for bad purpose. It depends on who is using it. Okay? And we also say that along the line, there shouldn't be over-reliance on AI on the part of the students so that it will not take the analytical ability that the person is supposed to develop away from him or her. Ditto the teachers too. And that leads us to a statement that we made, that for some of us, AI shouldn't be seen as bad or in negative light, but AI has its own good quality. Let us put some frameworks to say that this particular tool, let's say the one that we have been talking about in this place, there are so many other ones. I mentioned the issue of wearables. I mentioned the fact that some people actually need the wearables so that the doctor who is doing telemedicine can monitor their state of health. But you find out that some people will claim that they need also to wear the wearables and they bring medical reports. But the wearables, they are not using it because of their medical condition. They are using it for something else. There are spectacles that people use for something else. When you talk about wearables, even belts, I wanted to show a video, but because of time, of how people are using wearables to cheat in the exam. The micro drones I shown, how people are using it to do invasive into people's homes. So, to address your question, there should be guidelines. And that is what my colleague addressed, because you can't have a guideline without legal backing. But let me say this, like he said, we may not have a particular law in the country that has been enacted and labeled as AI law. But my little knowledge of law, we say that the Constitution is there to guide our conduct. And there are other legislations, like the criminal law. So if somebody wants to portray some form of ignorance or smartness that we don't have AI law, I want to perpetrate certain things with the use of AI, there are some other laws, like he said, that are waiting to catch up with that person. So we said there should be training and retraining. And part of the training is the consciousness of ethics and regulations being created in the minds of the developer, in the minds of the users, and in the minds of administrators. So that is my response to your question.
Okay. I'm answering the. Okay, we have online. I think he's asking that if you are saying that Ghana has made a move to have a law to regulate AI, I would like to know how effective. Okay, let me clarify something. Ghana, so far, is not having a law regulating AI. So let me clarify that. I don't know if maybe he didn't hear it well. Ghana has a strategy. The strategy is driving the implementation of the legal instrument or the act. So Ghana is not having a backing law, a law specifically for AI. However, we have the data protection law. But let me try to answer some part of his question that is valid. He's asking to the extent how data breaches in Ghana. A Ghana database, we have them in various sections, in various ministries. So every ministry and how they secure their data. It could be maybe AES or RSA encryptions or any other. But to the best of my knowledge, there is been an integration of the larger data that we have from the point of NIA up to other data uses. So I can tell you that for now, our Ghana data system is very strong. We can't recall the last time data was being breached. I don't know, maybe if I don't have the data was being breached in Ghana. It's been some time. Okay, so I can tell you that if we have, maybe if there are elections or other social activities or other minor projects, and a database is set, and people get or hack into it, those projects do not represent Ghana entirely. But there are specific areas of our economy that are highly encrypted. So that one for sure, especially with our national identification card, okay, as it's been integrated on a lot of platforms. For example, MTN will not just sit down for any data system that has weak security to be integrated on their system. Because by virtue of you using shortcode, you can get access to some basic information on your card, which means that MTN system or the telco, their system has something to do with our Ghana card. The same applies to our passport systems. So I can assure you that they are highly encrypted. Let me state here that I'm not speaking for the government. Thank you.
I want to share a thought on that. Yes, sir. I perceive that the questionnaire is talking from the perspective of people having access to people's telephone number, taking it away from them, and so on and so forth. I want to say that when there is a law, if you are a victim or somebody who is affected, the law is there and is waiting for you to approach it, that this is what has happened to me. The court will not go after these people, but you that is affected, we have to approach the court and say that this has happened to me. So if MTN or any other operator or even the bank or any institution, maybe you have registered with a clinic and there are some data breaches, the Data Protection Act authorizes you to approach the court for redress. Because there is something in law. If you don't have locus standi in a particular case, the court may not be willing to listen to you. So until you are able to establish your interest in a particular case. So the take away for me here is that if we are able to test the law when something affects us in terms of data breaches, then let's see the response of the law.
I'm Labi Albert from Accra College of Education. And my question is very simple. Is AI going to be a job creating policy, or is going to take away some people's job? Because from the presentations yesterday up to today, it's all telling us that the AI is doing what humans do, mostly accurate. And looking at things here in Ghana, one of our major problems is unemployment. So I'm just wondering, is AI going to increase the unemployment, taking away people's job, or is going to create more instead?
That is very, very interesting. Those who are around will recall some years back in the 90s when the slogan was labor protesting for automation in the offices, that it will take away their jobs, especially clerical officers and secretaries and typists. But here we are talking about efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity. If you are a business manager, your interest is in efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity. And if there is a tool to aid you to achieve that, you will go for it. So what did we preach in the 90s? We preached that those clerical officers, those typists, secretaries, should go for training on the usage of computers, because clerical officers change to data entry operators, typists change to data entry operators, and most of them today are big people in the IT industry. So my answer is that AI has not come to take away job, but AI has come to provide efficiency. Let me give you this. There are some experiment or operations. If you go to surgery, like my brother mentioned, the use of drone in blasting in data mining. I mean, in mining. You see, there are some things that are so complex that you cannot use human brain to calculate. AI has improved the efficiency of aeroplane in navigating the space system. AI is helping the air traffic controllers in managing. I think Kotoko here we are trying, but there are some airports that planes land almost every minute. It goes beyond the capacity of human being as an air traffic controller to manage that situation. So what we are saying is that let us use AI to assist us. And that is why we said not over-reliance, not to take over. It was in my presentation. To come as a supporting tool. For example, if you decide that, you see, the traffic lights, it will amuse you to know that it is some sort of AI, the traffic light. So if we are going to comply with the traffic light, then you relieve the inadequate number of policemen to go and address other critical sectors of the country. Because we don't have adequate number of policemen and women. So if we can relieve them in a certain way, then we can have them, they can be useful in some other way. If there is some kind of city-wide camera. If there is perpetration of a crime, it will assist the police to do their follow-up analysis and investigation. You see, in the advanced country, when there is a crime, within 2 days, they are able to tell you that, in fact, within a day, the suspect is somewhere in this building. Do you want to rely on human intelligence? In those days, when there is a crime, they ask the people who are eyewitnesses to come and describe, and they get artists to start drawing, and they will be showing them one by one until they are able to say, okay, this person looks more like the person. But in these days, when we are able to mount CCTV around the community or even our schools, if there is something that occurred there, we just go to our database and run through and then be able to narrow down to a certain number of people. So AI has not come to take people's job, but has rather come to bring in efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity.
Okay, so I'll respond to the other question. Okay, he's asking that in the US, there are a lot of giant companies that have taken up all the AI projects. But what I'll say is that the problems have not finished on this, our planet. There are always problems. So as far as there are problems, you can make innovations from the problems. AI came as a result of innovations. So if you want to venture the area, one, you know the players in the area, and then you also try to make yourself different. There are a lot of problems in our communities or in our environment that you can look at it and solve, and that will also make you a giant. We shouldn't always look at the fact that US is making it or other countries are making it ahead of us. We can also identify peculiar problems on our culture, our norms, our social setting, and address them using AI, and that will be a breakthrough for all of us. So the problems have not finished. We can still do more and be more competitive.
I just want to add that I think Prof is talking about university-industry linkage. So talking about KTP, knowledge transfer processes. I believe that the universities and the industries will need to do more, because if there are, most of the researches we are doing in Ghana are being funded by external organizations. So if the local industries are willing to partner with the universities, at least for the past 2 or 3 years, there have been some competitions on robotics, AI, and mechatronics, and so on and so forth. Some of these ideas coming from these competitions could be picked up by the companies and then transformed into commercial viable products.
Okay, from the presentations this evening, it's clear that artificial intelligence is already with us. And we must try as much as possible to look at the gains, leverage the gains, but at the same time, we should also try and mitigate the risks. That is very important because it has gains, it has risks. How do we make sure that we all benefit from what is already there? But at the same time, we also need to take account of the fact that the risks must be mitigated. And I think over here, I was reading, something about a week ago, and it says that AI will lead to, extinction. Extinction means that the human race will no longer be around, right? So how do we? So it's a very important thing that has questions. The questions which have been raised are very important, are very valid, even though the speakers took some time to do their presentation. AI is the baby on the block, so we need more information. People need to demonstrate what they have learned and what they can do about it. So I think that as a country, we are late. As a country, we are late for everything. And I think our level of preparedness is really not very encouraging. So I think an appeal will have to go to the government, the institutions, and even we as citizens. And the key question is, how prepared are we? On that note, I'd like to thank all the speakers for what they have said, and I hope that they would do well to prepare their papers for publication. The floor is now for the Honorary Secretary.
Thank you, Professor Ayi, for those closing remarks. We've had another very stimulating evening today, which is our second day of this year's public forum. We have come to the end of this evening's session. Tomorrow, tomorrow will be the last day, day 3 of this public forum, and we have another set of speakers who will be doing presentations on the topic, on the sub-theme, the future of education in the digital age. The future of education in the digital age. I invite you all to join us again tomorrow here at the auditorium at 5:30 p.m. as we engage with another group of speakers on this very important topic. I'd like to acknowledge once again the students of Accra College of Education. Your numbers may not be as large as yesterday, but your determination is certainly formidable, and we want to applaud you for that. Please, let's appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I hope you have learned a few things in addition to what you experienced yesterday. And please do come back tomorrow. It is the last day, and we must finish hard. I'd like to also thank our invited guests who have defied the rain and the traffic to be here with us. We appreciate your coming, and please come back tomorrow. To our fellows, both and other guests online, fellows here and online, invited guests online, I'd like to thank you all for making the time to join us again for today's program. And I hope that we'll see you again tomorrow. Now, When you leave, there will be refreshment served outside, right outside the auditorium. So please refresh yourself before you leave. Thank you very much. And if you could please stand while the chair and the speakers leave the room. Thank you.